social justice. I'm sorry, change agents for social justice. I can't even get the name of the show right tonight because I'm so excited about what we're talking about. And what the show is about is we talk about different ways to impact the community, no matter who you are, no matter where you are, no matter what resources you have, no matter what background you have. How can you make a change in your community? We look at what people are doing around the country. We look at different ways that leaders are leading. We look at different social issues, and we just come together as a team and we say, hey, nothing's going to change till we become that change. And we work collectively to change our community for the better. So, my name again is Keith Strickland, and I'm your host for the night. And a little bit about my background. I grew up in Atlanta. I sold drugs as a child. I started selling drugs when I was about 12 years old. I went into the streets real heavy. I ended up causing a lot of damage. I ended up serving time. And once I got back and once I got my life together, I decided that I wanted to be a better person. I decided that I wasn't okay with the way I lived my life and that I wanted to go back and correct my wrongs. So I started a nonprofit organization where I help people who were coming out of the criminal justice system, and I help people who were maybe in communities that were on a fast track to go and follow the path that I went in. And I decided to just use my life experiences and use everything I had to just curve those actions, curve those behaviors, make bridges so people can get out the community, and not even just get out the community, but make bridges so that people could bypass the hardships that would cause you to want to become a criminal, or bypass the influences that would confuse you and trick you and make you do stuff that will make you throw your life away. So I started an organization called Making the Transition, and that's what we do. We go into schools, we go into courts, we consult governments, we go into low income communities, the public housing communities, and we just make sure people have support, make sure people have resources, make sure people have all the necessary components so that they can be hopeful and optimistic, and so that they can just go hard and create the life that they want and build that legacy that they family deserves. So that's who I am. And I want to introduce an amazing, amazing young man who I've had the pleasure to work with. We're doing some community programs together, and his name is Elvis. Sorry about that. I guess this is what's happening when you got to do Zoom on the phone. You get some interruptions. But like I was saying, his name is Elvis. He's a super producer. And when I say super producer, when y'all hear some of the things he's done, you're gonna be blown away. But Elvis has decided that it's not just enough for him to make music that may speak to the culture, but he got to use his platform to be able to make opportunities for the culture. So I'm gonna let Elvis talk a little bit about who he is, and I'm gonna tell y'all about some of the phenomenal things that I've watched him do, and we just get into how did he go from being the man he was to becoming this super producer who's changed the industry, and now becoming this person who's also changing people's lives. So Elvis, do you mind going into a little bit of your background, who you are, how you got to this place?
Thank you, Keith. Yeah, man, you did an amazing job. I was gonna be like, should just let you, talk. But no, first of all, thanks for having me. I'm super excited to be here. Super excited to be working with you. Man, it's an amazing time to to come together and do something good for the community. But just
I
a little bit
completely
about
agree.
my background. I've been producing for about the last 20 years, and I'm, I probably did a lot of your favorite songs. I did Ego for Beyonce. I did Glamorous for Fergie. I did Little Freak for Usher. I have 2 Grammy Awards. I got one Dove Award for Smokey Norfolk. So I've been doing this music for a very, very long time. And like Keith said, it's not enough for me just to do music anymore. I want to use my platform to do something good, to bring about change, and just to help out people and to help people all together. Whether you black, white, Asian, Latino, whatever it is. I started this organization called Hero. I'm sure we'll get into that, which stands for the Human Equality Rights Organization. And we're focused on criminal justice reform. We're focused on prison reform. We're focused on de-escalation, police brutality, a whole host of things that I just decided that needed to be addressed and wasn't really getting addressed the proper way. And even when it was addressed, I just want to be a liaison between the community and law enforcement, and do my part. There's a lot of people out fighting the same good fight that we are, just like you, Keith, and looking at your background and the things that you're done and the relationship that you have. I just want to be a part of it and add to it. So I'm honored to be here to talk about, whatever it is you want to talk about, and let's go.
All right. Well, first, I'm just as honored to have you, brother. I'm honored to have you here and to have you as a partner in the fight. But I'm happy you
Yeah.
started off by saying we could talk about whatever because I really want to be able to get into who we are as people, what led us to do the things that we did as people, because the first life we had to change is our own, right? So if we don't change our
Mhm.
own lives and we don't put ourselves in a position to where we can help our community, we can't make a change in the community. We can't be a change agent for the community if we still in a place to where we can't take care of ourselves or we still in a place to where we haven't found ourselves. So one thing that
Exactly.
I recently learned about you is that you came from the church background and that your musical background actually was connected to your faith. And I just want to ask you, how did that work out for you? Like, what was the birth of your love for music?
Um, like you said, man, I grew up in the church. I started playing piano, drums, organ, all that stuff at the age of 12 years old. And as I grew, I started playing by ear, you know. And then I started listening to my grandfather. My grandfather was a big blues player, Big Jack Johnson. So I tell people a lot of time my music is influenced, by blues, by gospel, by funk, because being from Mississippi in the Memphis area, that's all it was. It was blues. You had the barcades. I was out on the road with the barcades at the age of 19.
Mm,
Playing for the Barcades. I did a whole album on them. James Alexander, Larry Dodson, like all those guys. So I've been around. Like I think I got kind of like an old soul, but I've been around blues and funk and gospel. Half of my whole life, and a lot of that influence comes through my music. When people come and get records from me, it's always like, yo, we need something musical. We need something that's gonna stand out. We need something that's gonna set us apart from everything else that's going
mm,
on in the industry. And that's why I've been able to be so successful, because I'm able to deliver songs that's just maybe totally left, but on a big scale. You know what I mean? When nobody else is doing this, or when nobody else is taking a chance on playing chords, or when nobody else is taking a chance on not using the 808, I will. You know what I mean? To set myself apart. It's almost like, instead of me following the follower, it's like I'm not competing. I just create. So I never approach anything with the mindset of competing with everybody else. I just go and create and separate myself from the herd.
You know something that's funny? It's something that you said already that stuck out to me. You talked about you were on tour at 19 with some phenomenal people who went from being heroes to you and being people you looked up to being, I mean, looked up to being people who you work with, right? So that
Hmm.
automatically that shows mentorship right there because they brought somebody in and they helped you grow and they helped give you exposure so that way you can grow into your own. And then you talked about the relationship that your father played in your life. And when we look at the places you came from Memphis, from Mississippi, and you look at other black men who didn't make it out, but you look at the things you had that they didn't have. You had a father, you had mentors, you had exposure, you had a pathway, right? You had people who you
Hmm.
can look at and you could take something positive from. And just look at how much of a difference that made in itself. Do you think you would be the person you are right now if you didn't have those things?
Nah, not at all. Not at
No.
all, man. I think that I lost my father at the age of 16. So a lot of those principles he instilled in me, as coming up, growing up, I took a lot of that and applied those principles to my life. Now at 16 years old, it's real hard to kind of grow into a man without your dad,
Mm-hmm.
your physical dad. So me being around a lot of the older guys kind of gave me a real outlook on, like, okay, do this, don't do that.
Mm-hmm.
Be poised in this area. Keep your composure. Understand you got two ears, one mouth. That means it's better to listen than to talk a lot of times. You get
Mm-hmm.
what I'm saying? So I learned a lot of those principles and built a solid foundation to learn how to maneuver in this music business. And that from that aspect, I think that I've been able to sustain and actually, still be relevant still to this day.
Yeah. And think about the impact that we would have on our culture if more men would step up and say that we need to get those same elements to our young men, right? Like when you look at the music industry, we all know that a lot of people go into the music industry and it destroys them. Like they get a lot of opportunity, they get a lot of exposure, but because they don't get the elements, like you were saying, in different lessons, different modeling, that even
Mm-hmm.
in that space, which is one of the most opportunity, it opens up more opportunity for people of color and black men of color than most other spaces we have in this country, right? So just
It's true.
imagine if you can be in this industry and still not create a good life for yourself, even after the opportunity. Think about the people who are still in the Memphis, still in the Mississippi, and every other city across the country that looks like that for us. That if black
That's true.
men would step up, because it doesn't have to be, you would have been successful in any place you went to because you had the right elements. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like you could have went into any field because music's not
Mm-hmm.
all you do. All of that stuff still crosses over. That's why you're successful in other areas now. But imagine what we could do for our young men and our young women if we would just take the time to model and to teach and to walk them
Yep.
through. So
Yeah.
I I just go ahead.
Oh no, I was just saying, like a lot of times it's hard for us or for older guys, right, to instill those principles, because I tell people all the time, just like you grew up, you know, well, you sold drugs, right? But those same principles work for you as they did for me, or they worked for you as they did, you know, somebody that was in church, or person on their job. It's like if you stand on the street corner, right, 24 hours, or let's just say 15 hours a day, you're going to eventually sell enough dope to start, you know, becoming a supplier. You know what I mean? You're gonna hire another guy, he's gonna be on the corner, then that guy's gonna hire a guy, he's gonna be on the corner. So you're gonna create, you know what I mean, a whole system. The principles work for everybody across the board. Everybody has the same 24 hours. You
So
get
I
what I'm
want to
saying?
challenge you on the thought. I completely agree with you on the work ethic part of the principle, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the part of the principle that nobody the people don't see is you're a husband, you're a father, right?
Mm-hmm.
I've been with you. I've watched how you carry yourself in public. You carry yourself with honor because you respect your wife. Certain things we talk about, you'd be like, oh, let me talk to my wife about this because she's your
Mm-hmm.
partner, she's your equal. You have to learn those things. God can't bless a mess, right? If every time you move forward, somebody else has to move backwards, God can't move you forward. And I'm speaking of God. This may be the universe, this may be whatever somebody else's faith is. But there's a
Mm-hmm.
thing where if your vibration is off or if you put more bad into the world, you're not going to get good back out of it. So that's the part, especially I'm coming from speaking from experience. When I went through being poor in the streets, when I went through not knowing where I was going to eat, not knowing where I was going to sleep, and I was still a teenager and nobody cared, I got to a place where I felt like if this world don't care about me, I don't care about it, I'm going to get it how I live. The more my
Mm-hmm.
vibration was off, the more I didn't care about what other people's situation was, the more bad came to me. So no matter how much money I had made $1 million and still lived in the hood and still had the same issues because money can't protect you from energy. When you put bad energy out, bad energy is going to come back. So you may be able to have the same work ethic and the same fundamental elements in that space when you stand on the street because you're learning so much from being enterprising, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if you also learn to have a get it how I live attitude, it don't matter what happened. I want to talk about something that we not addressing. King Von just got killed,
Okay.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Nobody
Yep.
wants to talk about the fact that he was a shooter himself, right? Like what's so sad because he was taken at a young age and at his prime. But when you live a certain kind of life, you put a certain kind of energy out, it's more probable the odds of that energy coming back to you is just a higher chance of it, right? So I'm saying that
Oh
to
yeah.
say if we don't model the right things for our young men, like you got to see what success look like without violence. You got to see what
Mm-hmm.
it looked like without selling a drug, without taking from somebody else. You got to see people live a life that you say, man, you know what? I could rock with this. I could see myself in them shoes without none of the negativity, right?
Right. Right.
So
Yeah.
you had an example that said, you know what? I ain't got to go into the streets. I ain't got to do this. That's the part I'm talking about. Like we gotta stand up as men, and we gotta let people see I still live good after I start selling drugs, and I actually live better now. So I
Mm-hmm.
can't hold that in. As vocal as I was, as out there as I was when I was in the streets, I got to be 10 times that so that young dudes and young women behind me can see when you put down a sack and when you put down a gun, you can still move forward, right? So
Right.
that's the part I'm
Right.
talking about. We just gotta make sure that we're visible because
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we the blessed ones. We the ones who made it through, and it don't matter if
Right.
you make it through. And the only person that make it is you, and that's a segue into the next part of the conversation I want to have with you. What was it for you that clicked that said, you know what, I made an amazing life for me, for my family, and you're successful. You broke through every barrier that you came through.
Mm-hmm.
What made you say it's time for me now to go get my people and pull them to?
Man, honestly, it was me seeing Ahmaud Arbery, um, get killed, get executed, get lynched in the street, and that was just more on a transparent physical level, but mentally, I thought about my son. My oldest son
Mm,
is 19 years old, and I said, well, I know he's away at college, but he could that easily could have been him.
mm-hmm,
He goes out, he jogs every day, do the same thing. And I'm like, well, you know what? Although I instill principles in my son, he's still 19. So mentally, he's not capable of handling a situation like that. So what do he do in that type of situation? I got to get out of bed at this point, and I got to say, well, I got to start teaching, because when you encounter people, right, that intend to do you harm or intend to, hurt you or disrespect you or whatever it is, a lot of us as black men, we don't know how to handle it. And a lot
mm-hmm.
of time it turns into violence, and it turns into brutality, and sometimes it turns into it's fatal
Yeah,
for
go to a
us.
fatality. Yeah,
It,
and it
it
all
goes to a
stems from
fatality.
a fear-based reaction, and that's your point.
Exactly. Yep, exactly. So I'm like, well, what can I do to uh, minimize that? What can I do?
Mm-hmm.
What can I bring to the table that, everybody's trying to figure out what it is. And honestly, bro, it just clicked. I was like, we need real time intervention. We need real time crime prevention. There's no way that we can stop the brutality without some type of third party intervention. And I'm telling you, I laid in the bed for 3 weeks, bro. And when COVID hit, I had just left Memphis. I was back and forth from Atlanta to Memphis for a whole year, and I needed a break. So honestly, for 3 weeks, I I laid in the bed and did absolutely nothing. And also, what that allowed me to do was just to hear from God. I
Yeah, I was
wanted to
just
hear.
gonna say, well, I didn't mean to cut that off, especially not that
No,
part.
you
But
go.
you didn't just lay in the bed and do nothing. You laid in the bed and you got recharged. You got reconnected to your
Exactly.
source. You were able to get
Yep.
all the noise out and be able to bring in clarity. Because sometimes we got to sit in silence. I did. I believe it was 14. I can't even remember. It was either 14 or 16 months of solitary confinement. Solitary
Mm,
confinement is inhumane now. A lot of people, they say that solitary confinement can really take a person and put them into a very negative space. For me,
right.
when I was in solitary confinement, that was one of the best things that ever happened to me because I started selling drugs when I was a child. I was like 12 years old and I got
Wow.
deeper and deeper and you get carried into it the way you just get swept away. So every minute, every second of the day, somebody's at you. Time is always, you never have a second to just stop and think. But when I was in
Right.
solitary confinement, I learned who Keith was. I got to know me because all I had
Mm,
was me. Even though I'm saying metaphorically, I looked into the mirror because there is no mirror, but I looked inside my own soul. I looked inside my
right.
own mind. I looked inside all of the elements of myself and said, what is this? Who is this? Why is this? What am I trying to become outside of just trying to survive and make it? Because like I said, I had made $1 million. I'm still selling drugs. So I can't say I'm just trying to eat no more. I can't say I'm just trying to be clothed and home because
Right.
clearly it's not that anymore. So I had to get to
Right.
know me. And that's what that 3 weeks was for you. You moved into a
Right.
new chapter and a new stage in your life. And now it's a new assignment. And you would plug in back in and say, so what is the assignment? Something I heard you kept saying was, I saw this. What do I do? I saw this. How can I make an impact? You didn't say what
Mm-hmm.
a president need to do. You didn't say what some organization needs to do. You didn't say what was somebody else's responsibility. You said what can Elvis do, right? So first and
Yep.
foremost, that mindset that you had is the reason why you became the Elvis who got Grammys and the Elvis who's done these things. Because you always said, what can I do? How can I
Mm-hmm.
change my life? How can I use my skills to open up the door for my family? Right. So
For real.
that
Yeah.
transfers over into every area of your life. You got people who see and do. You got people who see and complain. You got people who see and get angry. You got people who see and get victimized. And I'm sorry, I'm not trying to talk about any victims of anything because we all been a victim at some point in our life. But my point that I am trying to make is I'm sure you can look at being in the music industry. I'm sure somebody took advantage of you at some point. I'm sure you had a bad contract somewhere. I'm sure things happened, but you kept going, you kept pushing. So the point that I'm trying to say is the reason why you are who you are, why you've done the things you've done, is because you look at you and say, what can I do? And with that being said, let's get into this Heroes app and let's talk about what the app is, what the organization is. But I want to say something real quick. When you talked about a third party intervention, I just want to make it clear what the third party intervention is this the community saying, how can we take care of each other? Without us
Exactly.
saying, it's the same thing of what can I do just on a massive level. Instead of us saying, what can somebody else come in and do to make our community safer, to make it a better living experience? And if we are the ones helping each other, you take out the victimizer because we're not each other's enemy. We're not desensitized to each other. We have no reason to harm each other. So what you have done is found a way to weaponize the community to fight its own battles. But can you get
Right.
into that a little bit more and explain how you're doing that and how people can be a part of that?
Right. So, back to like I was saying, I always thought we needed, a third party intervention. I felt like when I saw George Floyd, um, you know, get lynched, die publicly, and I saw that guy with his knee on his neck, and all of those people standing around recording it, I'm thinking to myself, why nobody intervened? Why, like, somebody could have threw a brick, somebody could have came and just pushed the cop just to give him a second to catch his breath, brother.
Mhm.
That's all he probably needed. Just a maneuver to catch his breath. He may be still alive. So the biggest question in my head was, why nobody stepped in? What like, obviously it was fear from, what I'm saying? And we got a tendency of looking at the police and law enforcement as superior. Now, yes, we should respect them. I think there's a level of respect that needs to be had between both community and law enforcement. But if they're not giving us that same respect, then how can we, give it back? So that's where I was first mentally. I would say I was angry or
Mhm.
I was upset. I was disturbed. And initially when I started Hero, it was from a point of, oh, we're gonna police the police, right? I'm gonna have people out here, every time a police stops somebody, you turn your camera on now, it alerts the whole community, it alerts everybody, what the police are doing, what's going on, blah blah blah. We're putting you on blast. Now,
Before you go too far into that, I just want to give a little background. When you talk about hero, for the people who I've had a opportunity to hear you talk about this really from birth of it, right? But
right,
what hero is, guys, is hero is an app that will be able to give you a geographic location in real time of any incident that's going on. So when you open up the app and you open up your camera, everybody who's a part of this app would get a push notification to let them know, hey, 2 blocks away, there's an encounter that's going on. Then they can see the encounter. And if you feel that the encounter needs an intervention, then you can come in and you can intervene in a way to where you're not disrupting law enforcement, but you're working with law enforcement to find alternatives because you are in your community. You may know the person who got pulled over. You may be able to say, hey, bro, just chill out. You're gonna go to jail tonight, but you're not gonna die tonight. So let them just put the handcuffs on you and do what you need to do. So it's like
mm-hmm,
now the community can not work against law enforcement, like he was saying, but work with law enforcement to say what do we need to do because we live here too and we want a safe livable community. So when he's saying hero is the new app that will give you the power to be able to come together with your own community, like almost like a ring camera or a ring doorbell. Have you have a community where your neighbors can see what's going on in the neighborhood and in the community. Well, Ring will be that in real time, where every person can say, what happened last night when I saw that car get pulled over? What was that about? Because think about this: if you did have a burglary or a robbery in your community, you may want to know what's going on. But also, what if a 14-year-old boy or girl gets stopped and their parents are nowhere around, but your child is a friend of that child and you know that child? Now, Ring can notify you, not Ring, I'm sorry, Hero can notify you, let you know what's going on, and you can go and step in for that child because now you'll get a notification in real time to know what's going on in every neighborhood right up the street from you or across town. But I'm sorry, I just wanted people to be able to follow in the conversation so that they
Yeah.
can know what you're talking about.
Right, exactly. And so, like you said, it's providing, the neighborhood a way, and these communities a way to kind of really police themselves, or make sure that they're safe when they have encounters with law enforcement. Because a lot of times when the law police come in these neighborhoods, they don't live in these neighborhoods.
Mm-hmm.
So they don't know, if Mr. John down the street, they don't know if he's off his meds, or they don't know if Susie is having a behavior issue. They're not a part of the community. So what Hero does is we actually want to focus on training heroes in de-escalation and understanding how to de-escalate situations before they get out of hand, before they get out of control. And we also want to work with law enforcement with this training as well, because we don't want to seem as an adversary. Like you said, we want to be in a partnership with them so that they respect us and we respect them. Because the worst thing you can do is to show up to an encounter with the police, and you get hurt. You get what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So we don't want to put people in harm's way. We want to offer training. We want to have, uh, live sessions, live training, as well as online training as well. And we're gonna have certified heroes. We're gonna have people that's in trainees. Just a collaborative effort of stopping police brutality all the way around. And I think that if we got real time video and real time intervention and prevention, we can cut it down a lot. I'm not saying it's the answer. I'm just saying it's a starting point.
And something to think about too. We both from Black inner city communities. Sometimes when you call 911, it could be an hour before you get a response. So let's say
Jesus
that you have
Christ.
somebody who exactly. Let's say that you have somebody who's afraid and you got something going on. Now, if you hear a noise in your house, you can call 911 and then you can cut on your Hero app and your neighbors know, oh, it's something going on over there. So your neighbor can say, let's go check and make sure they're okay. Right. So that gives
Exactly.
community connection when you got issues. And now some
Yep.
issues may not be a law enforcement issue. You may have somebody who may have gotten into a dispute or a fight or, just whatever's going on. And if you know three, four, five of your neighbors had a Hero app, then when you cut on the Hero app, they can come and defuse that situation without anybody having to even get law enforcement, into that, which means now law enforcement is more free to be able to go and deal with stuff that may be more life threatening instead of just something that can be dealt with on a community level, right?
Okay.
Another thing I liked about Heroes is I had a young man who his brother was killed inside of a store, shot and killed in front of
Wow.
his girlfriend and the people who would, yeah, just extremely traumatizing
Wow.
experience, right? But he was recently locked up because he had a gun on him, right? So you talk
Mhm.
about a young man whose brother was killed while doing nothing at all wrong in public with a police officer in the same store that he was in. Killer still
Wow.
gets away. Now he gets locked up because he has a gun on him because he's afraid. Gun's not illegal. He's not a felon, and he still gets locked up. But could nobody explain what this young man was going through? Now he's going through a traumatizing experience again because he's being detained by the police. He may not know how to articulate that, but again, somebody can see what's going on off the Heroes app, and they can come and explain, "Hey, officer, a few months ago, he had a family member who was killed. They're still mourning the loss of that. The killer was not arrested. He, has been dealing with this, but this is what we've been doing as a community to try to help him be in a better place. Now,
Yep.
instead of punishing a person who's already living through a hardship, we can look at what resources may be available so that we can get him some kind of maybe therapy, or we can do some things to where he doesn't feel so afraid, right? Because now you're punishing somebody, which is going to push them more into their own, corner. And when a person feels backed into the corner, that usually does not have a good result. So I just see all kind of benefits for not just Hero, because I stand behind Hero, but I stand behind the community understanding that we can't be healthy until we're all healthy. We can't be a community if we just are people that live on houses that are just happen to be next door to each other. Until we get to a point where we reconnect to each other, until we get to a point where we care about each other, until we get to a point where we see your child and think about our own child, our communities are not going to break these cycles. We have to get to a point where we care for the house next to us like it was our house. Like, it may be one thing to have family, and you're going to take care of family in the home, but your extended family still got to be family.
Hold on one second, Keith. 2020. 2020? Mm-hmm. Oh my God. Yeah. You get a brand new? Yeah, I'm on a call real quick.
But see, that's the beauty right there of community, right? Like, while you're just out, people feel comfortable enough to come up and ask you, "Hey, man, that's a beautiful truck. What kind of truck is that?" Because they don't see you as a threat. They see you as a member of their community. But the thing is, not trying to be funny, that person wasn't a part of our culture. Our culture has been taught to push against each other instead of embracing each other. And we got to get to a point where we're not afraid when we see each other. We got to get to a point where we have love before we have, "Hey, man, what he doing over there?" You know what I'm saying? So we have to be the change agents to be able to reconnect each other. Because until we get to a point where we're back connected, we're not going to be able to make these changes. Think that person felt comfortable enough to come up and ask you about your truck. They didn't feel threatened by you. They didn't say, "Hey, man, he been sitting over there in that truck for a minute. What you got going on?" They said, "Oh, that's beautiful. Let me go over there and speak to him." And that's what Hero does. Hero connects people to where we speak to each other again. We care about each other again. We do this again.
Yeah, and if I didn't let the window down, he was gonna stand out there till I did. Exactly. Like, wait.
Exactly. But this is the thing, though. Are you in a low income community right now?
You say what now?
Are you in a low income community right now where you're partnered?
No, I'm in Midtown.
So that's my point. When you go to more affluent communities, it changes the people don't have so much fear for each other. But when we go into low income communities, places where people are already deprived, places where we're already over policed, places where we don't have the same securities and measurements in place, we don't even have each other. So now we got all these different negatives. We got food deserts, we got job deserts, we got resource deserts. Then we're over policed, over convicted. So we don't trust the police, because typically when police come, it's a bad thing. And then we don't even have each other for a bridge or for a foundation or for a connection. You get what I'm saying? That's so real. We have all this brokenness, and we wonder why we get so many more traumatic experiences, that now the brokenness from the outside comes inside and hurt people. You get what I'm saying? So we have to change this. We have to say the same thing you said. When I saw this happen and I got upset, what can I do? When I saw this person suffer, what can I do? We have to get that type of attitude where you don't wait until it hits your home. As soon as it hits your neighborhood, that's a call to action.
It's called to action. You're right.
Now this is the thing. Your life has been blessed. You don't live in a hood anymore. You raising a family. Your family is in a stable position, right? But you still see the issue is your problem. It's not because truth of the matter. Once you get to a point where you can call an attorney on speakerphone, you don't have the same risk. If you really look at it, it's not well-to-do Black people who are getting pulled over and getting shot. It's people who the police feel like they can bully, and it's people who the police feel like are weaker because they're by themselves. But this is the thing. As soon as you get to a place of privilege, you got to use your privilege for your people. You got to use your platform for your people. You got to use your resources for your people.
That's real. That's real. I mean, that honestly, that's all I've really been doing, throughout my whole career, man. And I'm not the person to brag on, that what I give. I just understand that giving is the real, you know what I mean? It's the real path to happiness. Once you give up your idea of what happiness is to you, and give and serve, then happiness is around you automatically. You know what I mean? And my biggest thing is, it's like, you know, what is my contribution going to be to, you know, humanity? What is my contribution going to be to my family? You know, what am I going to really, really leave to this world to help further it, to better it? It's like, you know, how we always looking at history and trying to find artifacts and trying to understand what they did back in the day. How did they live longer than us? How did they, you know, build these pyramids? Like, stuff we just don't understand. So, you know, who knows what in the future going to bring. Like, we don't know how these people going to be thinking, looking at us. They might be looking at us as like, oh, they were so primitive. Like, oh, they was riding around in cars on the ground while they flying in cars. You get what I'm saying? So it's like,
Mm-hmm.
what are you doing? I always ask myself, what are you doing to, you know, contribute to mankind? You know, what's the next step? What's next? I'm always just striving for greatness all the time. You know what I mean? And I just never stop. I never get content. And that's one of my principles. I just never get content.
You know what? If it's you bring up a point, it's two different points that you made me really think on. First, I want to back up and say something that I felt really remarkable. You're a music head. Like when we talk, like you literally love music. It's not just your vocation, you love it, right? But
Mm-hmm.
we've never sat down and talked about a song, but we have sat down and talked about books, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
we talked about our favorite books. We talked about where can we go find this new book when it came out, but never
Mm-hmm.
have we once sat down and talked about music. Because even though you may love music, you love to expand yourself. You love to take in things that grow you so that you can grow for your family. So the more you grow, you can lead them and be the man you need to be for them. And that's something that I think is very remarkable because it shows diversity and it shows wholeness and it shows that you have different elements inside of you. Right. When you're in the studio, you zoned in. We talked about that before. You love to be able to do the live instruments. You love to be able to lock in. You got a day out
Yeah.
the week. That's it. That's your day just to listen to track. Right.
Yeah.
But that's not
Yeah.
all you are. You also are a person who's health conscious. You're also a person who's very, very, very intentional about what you let go into here because you know it impacts here. And that says way into
Exactly.
the second part. What I was looking at was I recently met some people who I really they touched me emotionally. I came from a hard background, so it take a lot to really, you know what I'm saying, touch me to a place where I just
Mm-hmm.
feel I really feel bad about situations when I see them because I feel like my hardships molded me into the man who I am. If I didn't go through my hardships, there's no way that I would be who I am right now. If I didn't lose my daughter, I wouldn't have programs for other children because I wouldn't know the value of a child because I wouldn't have known how precious a child was, right? Having my
Right.
daughter didn't teach me how precious a child is. Losing my daughter did, right? So I see
Mm-hmm.
how my hurt, my one child is not more, no more important than every child out here. So my one child, that hurt that I felt caused me to open up a company that's helped over 100,000 children, right? So I'm
Wow.
grateful that God let me have a daughter, that God let me lose a daughter, and that God let my daughter transform my life. I'm grateful for
Wow.
that. So because
That's
I
huge.
have that kind of mindset, it's very hard for me to see a person's hardships and not understand how it will roll over into your biggest asset. But I was talking to somebody who went through a cycle of some just really hard things, right? And I'm sitting
Mm-hmm.
back and while they're talking, the same thing as you, I'm thinking in my head, what can I do to break this cycle for them? Because I want to see them have a better just situation. When you live a hard life, it makes you a hard person, right?
Right.
And the more I listened to them talk, the more I noticed they were really nasty on the inside. They talked really
Mm-hmm.
badly about people. They were really just negative, mean, had no empathy. I just noticed that. It really made me think about something you said. If you can understand what it means to be good on the inside, you're gonna live good on the outside. So it makes me wonder which one comes first. Is it the rottenness on the outside that brings out the rottenness? I'm sorry, is the rottenness on the inside that brings rottenness to you, or is it the rottenness around you that makes you rotten on the inside? And I'm leaning more towards it's the rottenness on the inside that draws rottenness from the outside because we both grew up in hard situations, but our hard
Mm-hmm.
situations made us love people. I've been kidnapped
Yep.
3 times. I've been beaten, tortured, and left for dead. You know what it
Mm-hmm.
made me do? It made me say, I want to go out here and make sure everybody has one person who they know care about them. Because when I was laying on the ground about to die and I'm bleeding out, it clicked to me. A year after I die, ain't nobody gonna really remember me. Because the only reason why people think about me now is because I got nice cars, I'm getting money, I sleep with beautiful women, and I'm cool. But that's
Right.
not love. You get what I'm saying? So I want to make
Mm-hmm.
sure now that everybody who comes in contact with me knows that at least one person loves them. That's what I took away from that experience. Not go out there and get somebody back. Not be like, it didn't make me violent because somebody did act of violence to me. It made me compassionate because I know what it felt like to be the victim of it. Right. So I'm saying that to
Right.
say that rottenness on the outside does not have to make you rotten on the inside. But rotten on the inside will block all your blessings on the outside.
I
So
know.
you
Yeah, I mean,
made
you're
me really
absolutely
think
right.
about it.
You're absolutely right, man. I mean, even just looking at you, right? Everything that you've said, me doing my research on you, and me us getting to know each other, and working together, man, you took a real, negative and turned into a positive. And when people have that principle and have that intellect to say, you know what, I'm gonna take every bad situation that I've experienced and turn it around and find a positive in it, then that's how you really, really win. And that's real happiness, man. And like, I applaud you because like you're doing something for people. Like, not like nobody asked you to do this. Like I'm sure you could be doing so many other things with your time. You're a smart guy. I know you are. High IQ, and to be that selfless and to allocate your time and dedicate your time to other people's lives, like that's a real that's a real intellectual process that somebody has to understand. Like, okay, I'm willing to give my life for the next man. And that's what we in our community, that's what we don't have a lot of. It's like, who's willing to die physically and mentally? Like, who's willing to die for us? Now, I've gotten to a point, honestly, to where I believe that when we identify our heroes and when we identify a leader, like I feel like we're looking for somebody to come and save us. And I'm like, nobody is coming to save us. We got to save
Mm-hmm.
ourselves. You see what I'm saying? So yeah, we're gonna have people that speak louder than others, but think about all of our leaders and all of our
Yeah.
people over the years. Anytime we've raised somebody up and put them on a pedestal, what happened? They take them away. They kill them because we don't protect them because we're not really willing to die for each other.
And your point is if we raise all of us up, you can't kill us all. I love that.
You
I
can't
want to
kill us
thank
all.
you though because I forget to say thank you sometimes because I'm very humble, right? And it does something to you to have to stop and thank somebody. That means you got to take the compliment all the way in. And sometimes the truth. I want to always make sure I never become arrogant. So when I was hustling, I was in the streets and I made all this money and my life changed so quickly, I became very arrogant, right? And I didn't know
Mm-hmm.
I had become arrogant because everybody around me was somewhat arrogant, right? So I've gotten to this place in my life now where I never want to get back to that again. So I want to say thank you. I sincerely appreciate the compliment and I mirror it. Like I see the same qualities in you and I see you doing this and leading a family. It's one thing to do to serve people, it's another thing to serve people while building for people. So I
Mm-hmm.
appreciate you for doing both because Mother Teresa said that the first thing you could do to make the world better is to make your home better, right?
Yep.
So I want to appreciate you for doing that on both fronts. But something I do want to say, I can understand how a lot of people get to a place where they become about self. When I was homeless on the streets as a kid and nobody cared, it made me so dark on the inside because I felt like I could
Mm-hmm.
starve to death and y'all would just ride past me and be like, somebody gonna clean up that body, right? So I felt like if nobody cared about me, I gotta care about me. If don't nobody care about me, how can you tell me what I shouldn't do when you can't tell me what I need to do? Right. So I went through that phase of my life. And then I looked at this. How did my neighborhood get to where it was so hard? Because we all got to that phase. How did my neighborhood get to be where it was so violent? Because we all saw each other as, oh, you don't care about me, so I don't care about you. We're all living through the same trap. Like ghettos were created. When you look at redlining, when you look at all the different social programs that were kept away from us, we were purposely put in a place to where we had so little to where we had to fight against each other. So that was programming and intentionality. And one day I
That's good.
decided I didn't want to be that person anymore. When I got to the point where I was getting drugs from Mexican cartels and I'm seeing where the money goes and what we do, like when we make this money and that money goes back to them and what they do with that money, I'm a part of that. When I got to the
Mm-hmm.
point where I was like, man, my life got to produce better. I can't tell my daughter I apologize for not being the father she deserved and still keep doing the same things that put her in that position. I can't do that. So when I got
Right.
to the point where I wanted to be a man and really stand up, I decided, man, I took away from this world for so long that now I need to get back to it. It ain't about me. It ain't about what I want. I've been in jails where I done heard men getting raped behind me, where I done had a shower. Well, I've been in places where guards and sprayed me down with pesticide because I had a
Mm.
visitation. So they sprayed me with weed killer to sanitize me, right? Because that's how
What?
low they treat you. I've been in places where I've been with Ku Klux Klan members. I'm getting into a fight with 22 Klux Klan members a day because I'm the only black man in my wing. I've been through some hells, right? So the fact that I get to go out here and serve God and serve my people, I'm living in my heaven. And that's what people
That's
don't
dope.
get. When you get to a point where you're walking in your purpose, when you get to a point where it ain't about you no more, that's your
Mm-hmm.
heaven. Because when you take care of this world will take care of you. Now, mind you,
Yep.
I drive a Porsche. I live good, right? And I do good because when I take care of others, God take care of me. And that's what I
That's
had to
real.
get into the mindset of. If I go out here and do my dirt to live my life, all I will ever have is what I get with no blessings attached, right? But when I put God first, when I put people first, that means I'm gonna live in a world where I'm protected by what I serve.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
that's what servitude is for me. Servitude is you tell me what to go do, and I go and do it, and you take care of me so I can do what I need to do for you. And that's the best place I've ever been at in my life. A lot of people don't quite understand me. They think that I'm so selfless that I just give and I give and I give. Every day I get to plug into a source that makes sure that I got all the love I need, all the happiness I need, all the fulfillment I need. I made a lot of money in my life when I was out on the streets. But just because you got money don't mean you got love. Just because you got money don't mean you got value. It's because it was times when I used to walk past mirrors and didn't want to look in them because I knew who I was. I knew what it
Mm.
took to put this Gucci on me, to put this Louis Vuitton on me. I knew what I did. And when I
Right.
had to walk past a mirror, I didn't see a person that's fresh. I saw a monster. I saw a person who put the same thing in other households that took my mom away from me. You get what I'm
Mm.
saying?
It's
I saw
crazy.
somebody
Yeah.
who made money off of other people's weaknesses so that they could become rich off of other people's deficiencies. And a lot of
Mm-hmm.
times we lift those people up in our community because they got stuff. But what we don't see is stuff cannot cover up emptiness. And this is,
At
I
all.
could talk about it from a street era or from a street level, but you see the same thing in the music industry. And when
Yep.
you see people who sell themselves and become empty, it's not just off of illegal or criminal acts. It's about not having a purpose. And I'm speaking to somebody right now because there's somebody out there who you not living in your purpose. You got a purpose. You feel your purpose on the inside. You know what your purpose is, but you're not living in it. You're not walking in it. And I'm telling you right now, the best decision I ever made in my life was walking in my purpose. You talking about a multi-million album selling producer. And I've never asked you this question, but I guarantee you he gets more fulfillment out of walking in his purpose than he did out of this career that he built. Is that right or is that wrong?
So true. You're so right, brother. Like
And you
I'm
talking about
I
somebody.
just
No, go
no, I'm
ahead.
just saying I just left dinner, man, and I was just telling the person I am so passionate about what I'm doing and I'm so at peace. Like you can like one thing you can't buy is peace.
Mm-hmm.
You can't buy peace. So when you find it, trust me, it's like you said, it's like walking in, it's like living in heaven.
Yeah,
Like
I'm
for
living my
real.
heaven right here. The, I got hit by an 18 wheeler, almost passed.
Mm,
I wasn't mad because I got hurt. I wasn't mad because I almost died. I was mad because there's so many different purposes that I have not yet filled in this planet. Right? Like
yeah.
that was what made me upset. I went out and hired a whole nother staff. I started doing training because I refused to die and leave anything undone. I refused to die and not let my people get what God put inside of me to give to you. That's what
Mm-hmm.
bothered me. Not the fact that I almost died. It was the fact that other people deserve what's in me. It ain't mine.
Right.
You get what I'm saying? My talents ain't mine. My gifts ain't mine. My mind ain't mine. My resources ain't mine. My relationships ain't mine. None of this stuff is mine. It's what's supposed to flow through me to be given to the next person so my candle can light their flame. That's what life is about. It's not about what
Yeah.
you acquire. It's about what you give away. And so many of us don't understand that. And it's easy to get caught in the trap when you never had. When you've never had, you think once you get, you're going to feel bigger. But that's the trick of life. You never get enough to feel bigger. The only thing you feel bigger about is when you look back and see somebody else closer. When you look back and you see somebody else in a better position. My proudest moment is knowing that other people can feed their families because I created a business that carries us. That's my
Yeah.
proudest moments, right? So it's not about what I get, it's about what I gave away. I give away 70% of my income. 70% of my income I give away. You know why?
Wow.
It ain't mine. I'm grateful that I get 30% of it. You get what I'm saying? Because it
That's right.
just
Yeah.
flows through me. Because if I have more than enough and I give it away, that means I'm gonna always keep being given more. But we got 1 minute left. Our amazing producer, Ashley, is letting us know. But let us close out by you telling people where they can find you at and just how can they find these heroes out.
Man, so everything social media is Black Elvis without the K. That's BLACELVIS at Instagram, at Facebook, at Twitter. The Hero app will be hopefully available by the end of the year. We are in beta mode, so you'll start seeing press and news and all that good stuff. But we're super excited about Hero, and I know we're going to be able to do some amazing things. So just stay tuned, stay in touch. You can go find a lot of information on heroforall.org. Go check out the website, and we keep a lot of information there, petitions, the whole nine.
Hey, Elvis, one thing we forgot, brother, which is hilarious. We forgot to tell people we got an event on November the 24th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. From 10 a.m. to noon, we'll have a live panel where we'll have people from law enforcement, the state capitol, city hall, all across our government. And then we'll have community members, and then we'll have different influencers, and we'll be talking about how do we create a healthy relationship between law enforcement and the community. How do we do this de-escalation so that we quit having all this violence, and so that we can talk about how each person can play their part so we can have a better situation. Now, you can find that again on the website, any of the social medias that he just dropped. You can find it on my social media. You can find it at makingthetransition.org because we'll be live streaming it. And you can also find it at maryparker.org, maryparkerfoundation.org, or the Mary Parker Foundation page right here on Facebook. Again, that's going to be on November 24th from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. will be the conversation. And then we're giving out food and resources from 12 p.m. to 2 p.m. And the most beautiful thing about this for me is I get to do this right in the neighborhood where I used to sell drugs at, where I used to hustle at, across the street from where I used to have a trap at. So I get to go back and set people free from the same thing that I used to keep them in bondage. You get what I'm saying? The same place where I used to take advantage of my people's weaknesses, I now get to come and build up strength. So I'm so grateful. Like, people think that I'm serving. I'm really the one getting served because I get to say thank you for giving. I get to apologize for my wrongs and also thank people for giving me an opportunity to be back in my community and be a part of my community. So again, November the 24th, 10 a.m., 2 p.m. One more time, Black Elvis without the K on all social media. Makingthetransition.org. What's the Heroes website?
Heroforall.org.
Heroforall.org. All right, I know we got to go. I know Ash was like, bro, I told you 1 minute. So we love y'all.
Yeah.
We thank y'all for tuning in. And tonight was more of an organic conversation than usual because, when you got people, I just want y'all to be able to feel the spirit of somebody who y'all been rocking to his music for years, but you haven't known the man. So I hope that they got an opportunity to know who Elvis the man is tonight.
Definitely. Thanks for having me, brother. Appreciate it.
All right, bro.
Love.
Be blessed. All right.